Class is here with you for more science. And today you guys are going to do a really fun activity. You're going to need a couple of materials that you probably have at home, and I will show you those in just a minute. But what I want you to start with is thinking about this question. Do all food chains have to be in a certain order? Or can they be in different orders depending on the organism? So I want you to think about that for a minute. You could even write down your answer or your thoughts in your journal. And if you need to pause the video to do that, you can. One more time, the question is, do all food chains have to be in a certain order? Okay? So now, we're going to start with looking at a food web. And a food web, remember, is when a bunch of different food chains work together. Okay? So, here is a food web that we are going to look at. And I want you to notice that there are lots of different arrows going lots of different directions. And if you remember, the arrows point in the direction that the energy flows from one organism to another. Now, I want you to think about the things you see here. And I'm going to trace a couple of different paths. And I want you to notice that there are different paths you can take through this food web because it is made up of different food chains. But one thing I do notice is that they all start with the sun. There's nothing with an arrow pointing to the sun. There's nothing that gives energy to the sun because the sun provides all of the energy. Okay? All of the energy comes from the sun. I also notice that the arrow from the sun in this food chain only points to one thing, algae. And algae is a green plant, a green organism. Okay, so we have the energy source, which is providing all of its energy to a green plant. And now I start seeing different arrows going out in different paths and different directions. So I'm thinking back to that question of, do all food chains have to be in the same order? And I don't know if I'm ready to answer yet, but I do know that it seems like they all start with the energy source of the sun and they all flow from the sun to a producer. Okay? So I'm just going to trace a couple of paths. So let's just look kind of going this way. We have the sun to algae, to minnows, which are little tiny fish, to bass, which is a bigger fish, to a snapper turtle. Okay, so going backwards, the snapper turtle eats the bass, which eats the minnow, which eats the algae, which gets its energy from the sun. Okay, I'm going to do one more little food chain, and the rest I want you to explore on your own. Okay, so sun, let's go this way. Algae down to snails, sunfish, and snapper turtles. So going backwards, the snapper turtles eat the sunfish. Sunfish eat snails. Snails eat algae, which gets its energy from the sun. Okay, so you are going to make several different food chains. So you're going to make 3, all right? And your whole goal in doing this is seeing if they are in the same order or different orders. So you're going to need a couple of things, okay? So if you have construction paper at your house, you're going to need red, yellow, and green, okay? And you're going to cut them into strips, and you're going to label them. Now, one of these is labeled to show you as an example. Your green ones are going to be producers. Your yellow ones are going to be the sun, and your red are going to be consumers. And I'm going to show you another example in a minute where these are labeled for you, okay? So if you have colored paper, green strips for producer, yellow strips for sun, red strips for consumers. Now, if you do not have colored paper at home, that is fine. Another way you can do it is to I took notebook paper, you could do like printer paper, either way, cut it into strips and just label it. Here, let me turn this over so you can see this better. So I labeled this one with a yellow marker, sun. This one is green with producer, and this one is red, consumer. And I've actually labeled them with something else, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. So you're going to need strips, either notebook paper or printer paper labeled with these different colors, or red and green paper. And you are going to make 3 actual food chains that are from this food web. So what I mean by that is you're going to take your strips and make them into a chain. So I'm going to show you one that I already made. Some of you, or most of you, have probably already made a paper chain like this sometime in your life. So I made this based on this first one that I talked about a minute ago, okay? So I have my sun, and I stapled it in a circle. You could use a glue stick or use tape. So it starts with the sun, and then the next thing was the algae. So this one says producer, and I also labeled it with algae. Next were minnows, so that's my next consumer. And then I had a bass, so that one was here. And the last one in this is the snapper turtle, so I have my snapper turtle. So I can actually see this chain, and I see that this chain has one yellow link, a green link, and 3 red links, okay? Now, if you're using the notebook paper, I started this one for you. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I want you to have to figure some of it. But here's what you do. You take your strip, fold it. I'm going to use a stapler. So I'm just going to staple it. Okay? And then the thing that is attached to the sun is the algae. That's why I labeled this one algae. So I'm just going to stick this through that circle, loop it around, staple it again. All right, so now I have the sun, which is the energy source, going to the producer, which is the algae, and then the thing that ate the algae was the snails. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry, I went this way. Wrong one. Sun to algae, sorry, to insect larvae. So I've labeled this. It's a consumer. It eats my algae, so it's going to go around that ring, and I'm going to staple it here. Now, I did not finish this food chain because I want you to have to figure it out. Remember, you have to do 3 different chains. Then you're going to answer some questions that these chains will help you to answer. So you're going to have a file that you can either download and print or just copy onto a document, which is going to have this food web for you to look at and some questions. So after you make your food chains, you're going to answer those questions, and your teacher will let you know how they want you to do that, if it's in a Google Doc or uploading a document, however they tell you to do. Okay, so I hope you have some hands-on fun today actually making some food chains that help you get a really nice visual of how things flow. And remember, our question that we started with is, do all food chains go in the same order? Hopefully, after you make 3 examples, you will be able to answer that question. Okay, friends, have a great day, and I will see you back for more science tomorrow. Bye-bye.